Every once in a while, there's a show that gets completely demolished for one reason or another. I mean, like, absolutely ass blasted beyond repair. And as someone who always managed to be a fan of these shows somehow, I can say that I experience these things firsthand quite often. You know, the series like The Legend of Korra, Big Mouth, Steven Universe, MHA, or She-Ra. The series that the internet likes to deem the shows that people love to hate. And I feel like no other show fits that description more in recent memory than Hazbin Hotel. Before I get into the topic at hand, I want to say that all the aforementioned series are all shows that are not immune to criticism by any means whatsoever. As being a fan in the past of most of the shows I've named, I can tell you right here and now that, yeah, some of these are kinda ass. Whether that be a writing issue, plot issue, an issue with the character and how they're portrayed, how controversial the subject matter of an episode is, or if the show just straight up looks ugly. And Hazbin Hotel is not excluded from that criticism in the slightest. But unlike all the shows I've mentioned before in this list, Hazbin Hotel had one thing that these others didn't, and that's that the show wasn't even out yet. The Hazbin Hotel pilot came out on October 28th of 2019, and a few years later was announced to be receiving a full-fledged series. So that kinda intrigued me. Was the pilot really that bad? Was it the worst thing to ever grace the earth? Did this pilot single-handedly destroy their crops, fucked their mom, and poisoned their water supply? Well, I mean, no, not really. Because after watching the pilot, it was fine, not the worst thing in the world, but not the best thing either. It definitely has its flaws, but for the most part, it's a standard pilot, just okay. But that's when I found that the creator of Hazbin Hotel was none other than quite the controversial figure, to say the least. And to go ahead and establish it off rip, I want to say that I'm not a big fan of drama. I'm not exactly sure what Viv has done, nor do I really care to seek it out, because it'll probably make me sad. I've seen a lot of fans on social media say that most people hate this show simply because they hate Vivziepop as a person, and if that's the case, then I think that's a perfectly justifiable reason to not watch or support a show. Not everyone can or wants to separate the art from the artist, and I think that's perfectly fine. However, I'm not here to talk about Vivzie's, I'm sure, interesting lore. I want to talk about the show itself, what I think it does great, what I think it does bad, and is it truly a great piece of art, or is it the stinkiest shit adult animation has ever seen in years? Well, I guess I'm gonna find out. If you clicked on this video, you probably already know what Hazbin Hotel is about, but just in case if you don't, the show starts with Charlie. She's the princess of Hell. Hell is this place where bad people go, and to make matters worse, angels killed them basically due to overpopulation, and because they just don't fuck with them. Mostly due to overpopulation though. And Charlie doesn't like that very much, oh no! So she wants to send the people from the bad place to the good place by making them go to supernatural rehab in the form of a hotel. Yay! Following her on her journey are her coworkers and her girlfriend. Vaggie, Angel, Husker, Nifty, Serpentious, and Alistair. All of them, except for Vaggie, are pretty much useless for most of the series until they form a bond with one another and realize maybe they do want to help. Charlie makes the angel Adam mad, Lucifer is a Tumblr sexy man, something something something, animation errors, bada bing bada boom, the end. Okay, so now that I got that out of the way, I want to talk about the things that I liked first. If there's anything I can say that I like about this series, the music is definitely one of those things. Say whatever you want about Vivzie as a writer, but my god, does she know how to cook up a song. She's kind of like the Lin-Manuel Miranda of animation, and I mean that in the best and worst ways possible. When watching Hazbin Hotel, even in the first few minutes, you can tell that Vivziepop and at least 3 other people on the team are a big fan of electro swing, pop music, and barbershop quartets. Vivziepop really got me out here singing some of my favorite songs being Out for Love, Loser Baby, Hell's Greatest Dad, and Stayed Gone. And while watching a bit further, I've noticed that this show doesn't really feel like a traditional musical, akin to those like Tick Tick Boom, Across the Universe, literally any Disney movie from the Renaissance era, or even Shrek. the musical, but it more so feels like a culmination of music videos shoved into a 3 to 4 hour long show, which isn't really a bad thing because the songs are still great. I just thought that was funny. For the most part, what I love about these songs is the thematic consistency. Granted, the themes of this show aren't really that great to begin with in my opinion, which I'll get to in a bit later, but I do think what they're going for makes the songs all the more impactful for me. And not every song is like that. Some of them kinda just exist for the sake of a musical number, but when every other song plays into its initial core to enhance its storytelling, I think it balances out pretty nicely. Like the song Loser Baby is probably one of the best examples of this. I've seen a few talking points online of people saying the point of this song was to compare SA to gambling addictions to make a point on how they're both equally bad, and I'm like, the song isn't even that deep. How do you misinterpret something that badly? The whole gist of the song is just Husk saying, we aren't so different, you and I. Our situations are vastly different, but I know how it feels to be used / manipulated. It's not a comparison, it's just Husk having, basic empathy. But even though I do like most of the songs from a musical standpoint, I have to say though that I think Hazbin Hotel kinda sucks at emotional storytelling. At least musically, except for Loser Baby. Keith David singing is a treasure, you can do no wrong, my glorious king. Kind of like I've mentioned before, most of the songs in this show serve thematic purpose for the characters or the story itself and are usually tonally consistent. But there's this one song in episode 4 where Angel is singing about his feelings towards the relationship he has with Valentino, a overlord of hell, and it's like the most uppity pop song you could possibly imagine. Like the lyrics most definitely match the visuals and perfectly resonate with Angel's circumstance, but the song itself just immediately took me out of the moment. And it doesn't really help that this is probably one of my least favorite songs in the series. I also have this issue with the song in episode 3, but for an entirely different reason. By that point in the series, all of the overlords of hell are being introduced, and there's this duo song that's sung by Vaggie and Camila, and it's supposed to be an emotional song that parallels both of their feelings since they are kinda going through similar situations. Vaggie feels like she's useless and unable to protect Charlie, and Camila feels incompetent as an overlord. She's also stressed because apparently she killed an angel, but like I've mentioned before, we're only in episode 3, and that's the episode where Camila is initially introduced. So her having this duo song with Vaggie feels more in favor for Vaggie's character than Camila's, because this is quite literally our first time seeing her. Like, I just met you and you're already trauma dumping? Oh my god. But outside of that, I think every other song does a good enough job at establishing the character's wants, needs, and feelings. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that. Another thing I enjoyed quite a bit are the characters, not in terms of writing or anything, just more so their general personalities, especially the main cast. I think they're fun. I'm a big sucker for when it comes to found family tropes, and Hazbin Hotel low-key makes me want to see more of these guys. Well, most of them. My favorite of the cast is definitely Husker. I was already on board when I heard Keith David was voicing him, but his demeanor just made me lean into him more. The slightly stubborn alcoholic old guy gotta be one of my favorite genders, man. The other characters are unfortunately not voiced by Keith David, but I suppose they'll suffice. When going into the series, I honestly did not expect to like Charlie for some reason. The overwhelmingly happy and optimistic character archetype usually never resonates with me, because usually shows make their optimism the only character trait that they have. But Charlie and her relationship with Vaggie was surprisingly fun and charming. Nifty and Alistair were also pretty cool. They didn't leave too much of an impression on me, and sometimes I felt like they were trying a wee bit too hard to make Alistair more intimidating than he actually is, but I like his cockiness, so I think he gets a pass. The two characters I disliked the most, however, were probably Sir Pinchus and Angel Dust. Please don't kill me. I can't really explain how or why I don't like Pinchus. His voice just kinda bugs me, and his little egg minion guys were just like never funny. For Angel, I think at the surface he could be an easily likable character, and I most definitely see that that's the case because this guy is, was inescapable for at least 2 months. Him and his uncensored ballsack pin. You can get one of those, apparently. And I do like him, kinda, but I feel like he's a bit too hypersexual. Characters that are comically horny can most definitely work, but for me at least, I think Angel's constant jokes about sex and sucking and fucking are a bit too excessive at this point, where it comes off as, kinda annoying. I definitely get why he's like that. I'll get into that later, but like, come on guys, please stop. I can take but so much porn jokes, oh my god. And speaking of the comedy, I think it's finally time to talk about the I'm not even going to beat around the bush, man. I honestly don't think this show is very funny. I don't have too much to say about the comedic aspect of the series because it'll pretty much just boil down to me saying, I don't like this joke. And that's about it. If there's anything in this world that's subjective, it's most definitely comedy. I don't think anything can be objectively unfunny because to best believe, there will always be someone out there that can find the humor in even the most atrocious of jokes. With that being said though, I don't think most of the jokes in Hazbin Hotel work, not even because they curse a lot or anything. I actually don't mind that. I just don't think the jokes hit. But you know what they say, one man's Jack Black is another man's James Corden. I don't know. The dialogue in this show is kind of weird, and I can't quite put my finger on why. The voice actors themselves do a very good job with the material they're given, but I feel like sometimes the characters often over-explain when they probably shouldn't be. It's one of those instances of showing instead of telling. When a character feels a certain way, sometimes they'll just blurt out their feelings in full detail with no room for subtlety, which I guess can work sometimes, but in my opinion it happens way too often, like in episode 4 with Husk and Angel. Angel tells Husk how he truly feels and why he acts the way he does, which works fine as a nice emotional beat, but I feel like it was kind of unnecessary, because a few seconds later, Angel sings a song with Husk that pretty much says the exact same thing, but in a significantly more fun and impactful manner. I feel like it would have been better if they had Husk come to the conclusion himself through observation, rather than Angel just, you know, directly telling him. One thing I've noticed about this show is how fast the pacing is, and it makes sense because the show is only 8 episodes long, with each episode being about 24 to 25 minutes, which I'd say isn't nearly enough to establish what the series was trying to go for. There's this thing that this show does where conflicts are resolved extremely fast or with relative ease. I first noticed this in the episode where Sir Pinchus was introduced. Charlie's main goal is to rehabilitate sinners by having them want to choose to stay in her hotel for self-betterment, whereas Sir Pinchus, he comes marching into the hotel because he hates Alistair. Alistair one-shots him, he gets sad, and since Vox the TV demon hates Alistair as well due to one-sided beef they had in the past, he uses Sir Pinchus to spy on Alistair at the Hazbin Hotel by pretending to want rehabilitation. But since Sir Pinchus is a silly goose and fucking sucks at his job, he gets caught literally in a few hours. And then Charlie sings him a song about how all he has to do is say he's sorry, and now everything is all fine and dandy with them now. And that's it. It does take them about half an episode for them to actively trust him, but even that happened way too quickly. I honestly just can't believe a singular song was enough to immediately change the heart of Sir Pinchus so much to the point where he would actively want to grow and change as a person. It also doesn't help that after that moment, Sir Pinchus doesn't really do anything in the series. He doesn't have a character arc, he doesn't have any plot significance, he's just kind of there to fill in an empty space in the hotel. And it's kind of funny because the show actually does something similar to this, but in a way more effective manner later in the series with Vaggie and Camilla. So it's made somewhat public knowledge that Vaggie used to be an angel, so she goes to the overlord Camilla for advice on how to kill angels, since she's supposedly the only one in existence to find out that angels can be hurt, which in and of itself is kind of strange, because you're telling me that hell has existed for thousands upon thousands of years and not a single person has ever discovered an angel could be hurt until this very hyper convenient moment in time? I mean, okay, I guess. But during their conflict, they sing a song. Not only is the song thematically important for Vaggie's character, but it essentially serves as a training arc for Vaggie and validates her motivation. Because not only are they singing, but they're also simultaneously taking action to better themselves. The song itself isn't what makes Vaggie better, it was the direct action. And I wish more songs in the show did that, but unfortunately, that's not the case. The series also tackles SA, not in a very explicit manner, but just enough to where I can definitely see why it could or would make someone uncomfortable. I remember seeing a lot of buzz around this particular topic and how the show seemingly romanticizes the abuse Angel experiences, but to me, I don't really think that's the case. Angel is definitely hypersexualized by Val specifically, which is why he sees himself the way he does, but the show goes out of their way to show the horrific and disgusting nature of how SA can affect someone, having Angel relapse and even devalue himself constantly in the process. From the perspective of Val, I guess you could say it's romanticized, but the show makes it very clear that he's the one rightfully being antagonized. The subject matter itself was executed decently, but what I think makes this arc fall short is the absolute lack of consequence. Usually in media, when you explore the topic of abuse of any kind, there has to be an equal balance of sincerity and repercussion. In order to solidify Angel's arc, something has to be done to make the audience truly understand what the story is trying to say. And Hazbin Hotel does seem to be sincere about the matter at hand, but it does a poor job at making Val actually face the consequence. Like, yeah, Angel stood up to Val for a brief moment, and that's great, good for him, he deserves it. But Val is just kinda upset about it, and that's really it. Val doesn't lose his status as an overlord, his fame, or his fortune. He's not knocked down a peg in any way, shape, or form. He's more or less the same guy as he was when the series started, except he's just kinda cranky now, and since those lack of consequences do exist, to me at least, it makes the whole thing lose the impact I thought it was trying to go for. But hey, at least Viv gave us a cool song, right? So, do I think it's cool to hate Hazbin Hotel? Yeah, most definitely. Hazbin Hotel is one of those series that will exist and automatically attract negativity no matter how good or bad you're speaking of the series. It's definitely became a trend to bash this show recently, and even though I don't think the show itself is bad, I have to admit the insert show but if written by Vivzy Pop thing that was going on has me it had me absolutely dying, man. Holy shit. I wouldn't call myself a fan of this show personally, but I wouldn't say that I hate it either. I had a decent time with the show, and I even enjoyed it thoroughly. Not everyone who dislikes the show is a super hater who doesn't understand its genius, and not everyone who likes the show is the most insufferable bisexual you'll ever meet in your entire life. Like, it's okay to dislike things. Opinions are normal. We should probably all hug and, you know, go to Waffle House or something. This was Subject Juice. I love you, and make sure to drink more water, because I know you're not getting enough. You know who you are.